my God, Becky.
Can Miss Becky please raise her hand, bro?
You better call Becky with the good hair.
Yo, what's good? It's your girl, Becky the Poet. Welcome to my podcast, Unspoken Words. We're at episode 83 or 4. One of those. Who knows? We have a special guest today. Special guest, introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Carolyn White, and I'm a new author of the book Hidden Treasures.
So this is her first podcast interview. I could tell you're really antsy. You want to break the ice? Favorite color?
Purple.
Favorite ice cream?
Rocky Road.
Favorite vacation?
Hadn't had one.
Oh, in 2020?
At all.
Oh, do you like cruises?
I like cruises, but they have to be short.
If the COVID-19 didn't happen, where would you have gone in 2020?
We had a trip that was scheduled to a train trip from San Diego, California, 7-day trip across the country to New York City. Was looking forward to it, but got canceled.
Okay, so we're about to get started. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
You're ready. So I know you're a new author. I'm gonna adjust this microphone.
Okay.
Sorry. Dennis, you just do a little B-roll. All right, so you're a new author. So how long did it take for you to get this book going?
It took me approximately 7 years. I started in 2013, right after I graduated from law school. So off and on, I would sit down, take the time to write, but in all, it took about 7 years. 7
years. Is that average for a writer, or sometimes does it take writers longer to write?
Research shows that it takes sometimes it takes longer. For me, I think it was a lot of procrastination. Writing this type of book, it meant that I had to deal with a lot of emotions, internal things that I hadn't dealt with.
Kind of like a Band-Aid you don't want to take off yet, right?
Yes, exactly. It's like, there's a wound there, it has a scab on it, but it's not healing properly, so you have to take it off and apply the right medicine in order for it to heal. So that was a process for me, and I wasn't really ready, I thought, to take that Band-Aid off.
Right. So now that you are done, is it done like completely?
The first book, Hidden Treasures Part 1, is completely done. It's in printing stage now, should be hitting bookstores soon. Part 2 of Hidden Treasures is in editing phase.
Okay. So you already started part 2?
Yes.
Oh, wow. So when is like the release date do you estimate this book will be released?
The estimated release date is June 25th. It may be pushed out a little bit further because of COVID-19, but hopefully it'll stay on track July 25th. It'll stay on track for July 25th.
So I used to be a reader back in elementary school, and I think as I got older, I fell out of reading. So what type of genre does this book fall into?
It's both personal. It's sort of like religious/personal development. It helps you both in the aspect of, rediscovering who you are, but it also has a religious tone to it. So it combines both moral values and religious values principles that we're able to stand on.
So who are you targeting when you wrote this book?
When I wrote the book, I didn't have an actual audience in mind because I wanted to be universally fit each and every individual differently. Then I sort of, narrowed it down to fit individuals like young adults who are struggling to get past, traumatic experiences as a child into their adulthood. And so it's, that age between, adolescents or preteens or up until the age of like 30. But, any individual can read the book and gain something from it. So I didn't want to really narrow myself or put myself into a box because I wanted to be able to reach anybody who needed to break free of past hurt and pain that they had experienced, that we're holding on to. So.
Well, that's good. I think it's a little bit easier when you write to a general population as to like, I'm trying to target women, I'm trying to target young adults, because I think it's harder that way because you kind of have to think like them. So I know when it comes down to writing like religious books or anything like self-development, the vocabulary of it all, I think it's hard to, get a hold of young adults. So how have you, handled that?
I reached back and remembered the moment when I was that person. You know, I remember how I felt and how I wanted someone to talk to me.
Right.
And the language that really impacted me, that got through to me. So I had to reach back and remember those moments and what was said to me to help me get past that. And I really didn't want to just target, narrow it to women, because I understand that I've met a lot of men who went through traumatic experience. People think, oh, well, only women get molested.
Right.
And that's not true. Men have been molested as well. Only women are beat on or experience domestic violence. That's not true. So I didn't want to be that stereotypical author who only targets one genre or one sexuality. I mean, it's just everybody. It's like anybody can grab something from this book and apply it to themselves.
Okay, so we got a little sneak peek. I'm going to pull up the cover so I can ask a couple of questions. So I will probably release the photo I can or cannot?
That's fine.
Okay, yes, so I'll send it to you, Dennis. Hidden Treasures 1. Mm-hmm. So the cover of it is a forest themed with like a rose in the middle. It kind of reminds me of Beauty and the Beast a little bit, the symbolism of the rose. So what is the symbolism of the rose here in this forest?
The symbolism of the rose is each individual finding the beauty that's hidden within them. A lot of times we don't see that beauty. We see the tragedy of the experiences that we went through,
right? But
we don't find beauty in any of it. The most horrifying experiences for a child is being molested.
Right.
What's the beauty in that? It didn't destroy you. You came out of it. You're still a beautiful individual despite what the tragedies that you may have experienced in life. So the single rose represents the beauty within each individual who picks up this book and reads it.
Okay. Wow, that's very deep. Lots of symbolism there already in the cover. So, do you write with a lot of metaphors, or do you kind of just go straight to the point?
I use a lot of metaphors just to try to get people to understand. People learn in different ways. So, in order to reach different people, I had to use metaphors, similes. Sometimes I had to use parables, to get to relate to them, like the Band-Aid, removing a Band-Aid in order to heal yourself. So it's, all of that is entangled in this book because, everybody learns in a different way. So you can't just teach something to someone in one general language. A teacher has to learn multiple ways that individuals learn in order to get, teach her audience. So in order to do that, I had to develop different techniques to reach different people.
That is really good. It's actually interesting that you thought about that, because sometimes lately, books that are written by authors, they write it for themselves and they have the mindset of like, this is how I write it. This is how I want it to be. I don't care about what my readers think. This is my story, right? But it's interesting that you actually looked into your targeting like audience per se, and also the general populations, and also kind of backtracking to how you felt in that situation, which kind of allows you to, I guess, relate to everybody. So you talk a lot about molesting. Is this what the main, the main background of this book came from?
No, it's not. That's not the main background because, it's different stages of your life. You go through different things, and it's just not about, it's about broken relationships, healing those relationships. It's about, finding who you are, as an individual, despite the circumstances and situations that you've experienced. A lot of children have come from broken homes where, the mother's there, but the father's not, or, mother and father gave them up into a grandparent, or they were put up for adoption. So it touches multiple areas in a person's life that they may have dealt with, what they call tragedies or trials or tribulations, things that have wounded them and they haven't healed from. And so it's just not about molestation, but sometimes that's the deepest wound for a child to recover from, is molestation, because it sticks with them because they don't understand why it happened, or understand the basis of what they went through, because nobody has ever sat down to really help them past that. We're just told to deal with it. And what does deal with it mean? How do I deal with this? And so the book tells us, the book is designed to help each individual deal with, particular situations and circumstances, whether it's rape, molestation, domestic violence, abandonment as a kid, broken relationships, low self-esteem, all of that is encompassed in this book.
So it's interesting that you use your real name in as the author. I know some authors who do write, they use what do you call it, not a fake name, but like
anonymous writer.
Right.
No, with me, I'm not ashamed of what I've been through in life.
Okay.
It's helped me develop into who I am today. And one of my favorite scriptures is in Isaiah 45, and it says, "He called me by name. My name is not anonymous. My name is Carolyn." And so I'm not afraid of the things that I've went through. I don't regret any of it because it's made me who I am. It's not a wall for me. It's not. I went through this. I'm ashamed of it. No, I came out of it. You know?
Right.
People like I'm a survivor. No, I'm not. I'm a conqueror. I overcame those things that were meant to tear me down. So
right. So I know we talked a little bit about what it was about. So part 2, since you've already, I guess it's like almost complete. You're just editing it right now.
yes.
Where do you think the difference is when it comes down to part 1 and part 2? Where do you draw the line? Because sometimes I guess when you're writing series, you could get repetitive, and sometimes you can like kind of backtrack what you just said, and it's hard to also like I guess, oh, I said this here, but then like you said something differently here. So how did you distinguish those two?
Because part 1 is a healing process.
Okay.
Hidden treasures, finding the beauty in the trials of the wilderness is a healing process in which you find the treasures needed in order to proceed in your journey in life. Part 2 is the Psalms 23 journey, and it's moving beyond that pain, taking those treasures, those nuggets that you found within yourself, utilizing them to realize the promise or potential that you have within yourself. And so in order to reach your potential, you have to first, heal all those bad wounds that have, seemed to cripple you and kept you in a fixed state of mind in order to grow. So part 2 is a journey that we go on in order to grow and reach our destination, fulfill those dreams that are embedded within us. So there is a distinction between 1 and 2.
So now that you're finished, you've kind of opened up a wound a little bit, and I know like as a poet, it's hard for me to release personal things like out loud to a audience, and so when I do, I kind of feel semi-relieved but also very scared at first. I know like it's always nerve-wracking too. It's your first book. How do you feel about this being released and you being very transparent?
Initially, I was scared. Even through the writing process, that was my thing. I'm revealing myself to people. People are gonna learn, very intimate details about my life, and some people are even going to be judgmental, but no one has a right to judge me. No one has a right to judge you or what you've been through, because every experience is independent of itself. We have our own opinions and perspective of things, but I can't tell you how to feel about something that you've been through, nor can you tell me. So people are going to cast their judgment. It's okay with me. I've been judged all my life. So it's to me it's no different. The most important thing is helping someone else get to where I am today. And so I can't let judgment or fear or anxiety keep me from doing that. My mission is to help people not develop a religion, but develop a relationship with someone greater than themselves that can help them pass everything that they've been in, they've endured. So.
I like that. I know as authors or any creative in general, once we release something, we are scared of judgment. And I know our worst critic is ourselves, right? And I know you probably because of the procrastination, you've like held on to this, you've held back yourself, and sometimes reading back and you're like, man, I want to add more because it doesn't sound right. Did you have to go through the debate phase with yourself of like, I want this, but I can't add too much of this, or like maybe this was too much, I gotta take it out?
Yes, and I believe that's why it took me 7 years to complete the book, is because it's like I took out, I put back in, I took out, I put back in, but because I was so afraid of, the what ifs, the should I, could I, what if I do this, what if I tweak this or add this word. But I had to be true to myself, and then I had to be true to the book and those who are in need of the contents that are within this book. So I had to put self aside and say, okay, regardless of what, this needs to be included. People need to hear this and need to understand, that they're not alone in this. So being true to myself and not worrying about fear or, regret or the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, I decided it was time to just step out on faith and, release the book.
So I know right now you're competing with a market of ebooks and audiobooks, And this is going to be a physical copy. Is that correct?
It's going to be in ebooks, audio, and physical. So if some people like me, I like to have paperback. You can buy the book online, or you can download it on
Are you going to
Amazon
be
Kindle.
doing the audio reading?
No, I don't do. I'm not going to do the audio reading. One of my points of anxiety, I should say, is reading out loud or talking. In public places is something that I know that I'll eventually have to overcome, especially with the release of the book. But no, I won't do the audio. It'll be digitally done. So, but it's available in both.
Wow, that's exciting. I know as a creator, you're like, oh God, I'm waiting for the release date. And you're like, all right, let me close my eyes once it's released. So I know you're going to have part 1 and part 2, but how far along in this series are you going to take it? Are you going to take it all the way to like Z, or are you going to stop at 1 through 4?
I don't know. It's an adventure. There's other books that I have in mind. There's a book that I've been just twirling in my mind, and it's called Stop, You're Out of Order. And it's because it's important to me that people do things decent and in order. I think that part of what we lost as a society is respect for each other, and so we overstep authority in our boundaries. And so Stop, You're Out of Order is a part of that, gaining back that respect that we have for not only individuals but for ourselves, because if we learn to do things decent and in order and respect ourselves, we can easily respect others.
Right.
So that's the next book that I'm sort of tossing with, the idea of writing.
So have you told your family about this book coming out?
Yes, my family has been a part of from the initiation process on through. I was scared to, tell them what it was about, because I didn't want them to look at me any differently. But
right.
I know that, I've shared most of my life with them and what I've been through. So they were like, okay, go for it. And I was like, are you sure? Because this is going to put us in a different light.
Right.
It's just not me putting myself out there, but my family as well. So I have their support.
So I know writing a book is not easy at all, especially compared to like millions of books that we have out now or way before us. And, Harry Potter and Stephen King and all them, and whatever we read, those short stories in middle school. How are you able to divide your book into 2? Because sometimes people write big dictionary size books, and then people write small size. How did you know it was time to make this a part 1 and a part 2 instead of one long book?
Because you have to know when there's a transition. And to me, that, there's no way you can combine both books into one. There's a breaking period that, some books are naturally, you can naturally divide a book into. And with me, it's like, okay, the second part of the book easily transitions into that journey that I talk about, taking the treasures that we found in part 1 and utilizing them in part 2. So it's a natural transition within the book. I couldn't see making this one big combined book. It was just, after I wrote it and read it, it's like, okay, this is 2 separate ideas or concepts within these pages. So this is where I need to make the division.
I know you're big on manifesting, right? So after this book is released, where do you see yourself, or where do you see this book and your career taking you? Is that worded correctly?
Yeah. I don't want it to just be a book. I want to go out, reach people, talk to people, speak to people. I want to, it's okay. Some people think, it's okay sitting behind a door and writing a book and putting it out there. But, if you go to a doctor's visit, the doctor doesn't see you one time and say, well, this is the medication you take and, you'll be okay.
Right.
There's follow-up. So I think that it's important as an author to do follow-up care, especially with this type of book. So I see myself going out, hopefully one day holding conferences, with, different individual groups and, speaking to them person to person so that they can see me and hear my voice. I wrote the book in a tone to where it feels like I'm speaking directly to you, but I feel it's important that they, physically are able to hear me and see me and understand that, I'm just like them. You see me now, but you don't understand where I've come from until you
Right.
actually read the book. So it's important to do that aftercare.
Well, I'm excited to talk about the before the release. Once the release does happen, though, we'll have her back on the podcast to talk about how you feel about the release and how you think people reacted to it. So as someone who's listening and they're an author, what are 3 tips you can give them to how to write their own book?
I would tell you to first just clear your mind, your thoughts. The first thing that you need to do is just be, precise on what the message that you're trying to relate to your audience. Don't put yourself in a box. If you're writing from the heart, let it be from the heart. Don't worry about judgment of others. Just be true to who you are, and those who are intended to have that particular publication will receive the words that are written within your pages.
And then 2?
The second one, I would say, do some research. Just don't write willy-nilly. Be focused. Do your research. Make sure that the information that you're putting out there is accurate information. Make sure that that the words that you're using can't be said. No one can say that you copyrighted the information. So just do your research to make sure you've covered yourself. I call it due diligence. Do your due diligence to make sure that your words are authentic and it's your words on the pages, and no one can come back and say that you copyrighted or you stole my material.
And the last one.
Step out on faith.
Okay. So I know way before this, I felt like our interview that was like a little mock of it was great. Forgot all those questions. But after your first podcast interview, how do you feel?
I still feel nervous, but I feel better. This is the first time ever doing anything on camera. Everything with me has always been behind the scenes. So it feels great. It feels, I'm excited. It's one step forward to doing what I feel like I have been called to do.
So give us a little sneak peek, if you can, about the next cover for Hidden Treasures 2.
Wow, Hidden Treasures 2. Just think about the title. A Psalms 23 journey. And when you read the verse Psalms 23, it tells you about still water. So think of something that's tranquil, something that's relaxing to you, something that says, I'm going on this journey, but it's not, I don't have to fear anything as I go through this journey. So just imagine a waterfall, with a valley in the background. So that's my ideal.
Is this TLC? I think kind of.
It's sort of something just, brings, takes the fear out of you. You go
Right.
from darkness into something that has light, that has a clear direction.
I know in movies they always use these waterfalls as great transitions to like change into like a new world or a new opening or something. So that'd be interesting to see. I can't wait to read it. I don't read books, so I'm going to force myself to read this one. And then when it's released, we're going to talk about it again. And then we're going to do some giveaways. And I can't wait to see what everybody else thinks about it. I'm glad to have you on the show.
Thank you.
I know you're not big on social media, but when was the release date for this book again?
July 25th.
Okay.
If there is a delay, I will try to get it out and get it announced, but it should be July 25th.
You should create an emailing list.
I could do that.
So we'll just push for her to do that, you guys. And then it's where you'll get updates on the book, maybe even some merchandise that she creates, and some maybe like virtual release thing. That'd be cool.
Good ideas.
All right, you guys. And we are out.
Becky, we got
Yeah, tell Becky to pick up the phone.
Oh my God. Becky.
Can Miss Becky please raise her hand, bro?
better call Becky with the good hair.